It's only been a day, and there's already a ton of negativity going around regarding Skirk's kit and power level. While there are valid reasons to be disappointed in Skirk, a lot of the negativity is a massive overreaction. So in today's video, we'll give a complete pre-release guide on Skirk's teams, builds, investment, and an overall meta-analysis on her. Let's get started. Alright, so if you're not familiar with Skirk's kit, check my community page. I have a post summarizing her kit in simple terms. She's a cryo DPS that gains massive buffs for being used in a pure hydro cryo team. The buffs are so large that, unlike someone like Nouvelette, who is still very strong even if you only get 2 of his stacks, Skirk will be very mediocre with only 2 of her stacks, so don't even try. Due to this team restriction, it goes without saying that her best team is going to include both Escoffier and Farina. For the last slot, you would think Shenhe is the obvious choice, but Skirk can't swap freely, so she only gets one set of quills, reducing Shenhe's value. As a result, it's very close between Yelan, Shenhe, and Seatlali for the best 4th slot choice. Just use whichever one you have. Seatlali in particular is nice because she'll enable the event weapon Calamity of Eshu that we got a few patches ago, but as we can see, no matter which of these 3 you use, the damage and DPS are both extremely high, second only to Mavrika's melt teams, so you will not be disappointed as far as power level goes. But the elephant in the room is, what happens if you don't have Escoffier? There's no way around it, you will be taking a massive DPS loss without her. However, the numbers with Escoffier are so high that it's still good even after taking the loss and using someone like Charlotte or Mika instead. It'll still be close to 100,000 DPS, which is still in the realm of modern day DPS. Note that we don't actually know how many extra attacks Skirk gets from Mika, I just assumed for him, so the numbers could either be better or worse with him, but we'll revisit that in post-release. Now, what if you have Escoffier but don't have Farina? Your best options will be to use either Yelan or Xingqiu instead. It's a pretty sizely drop in damage and DPS, but the team is still exceptionally strong. But what if you don't have Farina or Escoffier? There are many different combinations of Hydro and Cryo units you can use as alternatives for whoever you are missing, so it would take far too much time for me to go over every single team option, but other decent Hydro and Cryo options that haven't been mentioned so far include Mona, Candice, Rosaria, Layla, and Kaya. To help get an idea of how some different team combinations compare to each other, here is a list of everything I've calculated so far. As mentioned, I have not calculated every single possibility because that would take far too long, but hopefully this helps put things into perspective and will help you decide what your team comp will be. Now, all of this has been for using Skirk's normal attack playstyle, but she also has a burst that can be a good nuke. The problem with this burst is, you can't use both it and Skirk's normal attacks, you have to choose one or the other, and if you choose the burst nuke, then you have nothing to do for the rest of your rotation. So in order to use this burst, you would need to treat Skirk as a sub-DPS for another on-fielder. I calculated this with Risley just to get a feel for it, but unfortunately right now it's not worthwhile. Skirk will take too much field time relative to the value she's bringing, and all she will do is damage without any buffing or utility. So don't expect her to be better than characters like Yelan, Shenhe, or Seatlali as the 4th slot for other freeze DPS. Now moving on from the teams, let's look at how to build Skirk. For her talents, her normal attacks scale off of her skill talent level, so prioritize crowning that and you can completely ignore the normal attack talent level itself. And with her burst, the funny thing is, in her normal attack playstyle, her burst does almost nothing. All it does is give a small damage bonus buff to 10 of her normal attacks, not even all of them, just 10. Crowned, this is 20 damage bonus, and at talent level 1 it's 13%, so you're literally only missing out on 7% by not leveling it, and will not feel a difference. There's no reason not to get it to at least talent level 6 though. As for Skirk's artifacts, I am pleased to inform you that you do not need to farm Finale of the Deep Galleries. Meirashuse Hunter and Blizzard Trayer are very close. These Calcs are done with Skirk's signature weapon, which has crit rate main stat, and crit rate weapons lose a bit of value with Hunter or Blizzard, so these sets will likely be equal, or maybe even slightly better than Finale if you're not using a crit rate weapon. I don't recommend using Blizzard though, because you lose half the crit rate against enemies that can't be frozen, and all of it against enemies that can't have a cryo aura, so Hunter is kinda just better. And you can farm both it and Golden Troop at the same time, which is extremely resin efficient since you can put Golden Troop on both Escoffier and Farina. Note that of course, Hunter does not work if you are not using Farina. If you don't have either of these sets, Gladiator's Finale works perfectly fine as well, but you may want to upgrade to a different set over time. As for the main stats, this will vary depending on your exact team, weapon, set, and level of investment, but generally speaking, attack, cryo, crit should be best, with attack, goblet, or circlet being not too far behind, although you ideally don't want triple attack. And then for weapons, Skirk's signature is a massive 30% increase over her general best 4-star option, Finale of the Deep. So if you don't already have a good 5-star option, it may be in your best interest to get her signature. Haran will be her second best weapon, about 14% behind her signature, and followed closely behind other good stat sticks like Jade Cutter and Mistsplitter. If you have one of these weapons already, then you'll get a bigger increase by pulling a Constellation like Escoffier or Farina C1 instead of Skirk's weapon. Also, if you're using a shielder such as Lali, then Calamity of Eshu is a bit better than Finale as the best 4-star option. Also note with Finale, it won't be that good if you don't have a healer. Lastly, Skirk has pretty solid constellations. C1 gives her a lot more AoE damage, should be about 2,500 attack percent scaling per rotation, making it a very good increase for a C1. Keep in mind this is considered charged attack damage, so it won't benefit from galleries, thus you should probably use Hunter instead once you have C1. C2 is essentially just 60 normal attack damage bonus, nothing fancy. It's a very good increase, but not as insane as some of the best C2s like Kinich, Chaska, and Faressa. C3 for some reason is her burst and not skill, so it does virtually nothing. C4 is very simple, just straight up 50% more attack. Very good considering most DPS have underwhelming C4s. C5 is skill plus 3, which is where basically all her damage comes from, so it's great. Then C6 gives a bunch of extra coordinated attacks. It's a 26% increase, and most modern day DPS have like a 40% increase or higher at C6, so it's not that insane relatively speaking. But as you can see from the math, that 26% is an additional 1 million damage, so it's absolutely going to feel like a massive increase. Overall, because Skirk only has one bad constellation, she gets a very good increase from the constellations as a whole. She just doesn't have any one specific constellation that's a particularly large increase. C1 and C2 are both great early stopping points, but before considering Skirk's own constellations, I'd recommend getting Escoffier to C1, as her C1 is a similar increase to Skirk's own C1, while also buffing Escoffier's own damage. And that's about everything, so what's the overall meta-analysis? Skirk is looking to undeniably be one of the strongest DPS in the entire game. Her damage and team DPS are second only to Melt Mavrika, and she has great quality of life with freeze plus high interruption resistance, even able to have a shield with Lali without losing out on anything. But this is certainly not to say that she's flawless. Some downsides are she seems to be very melee range with little range on her attacks. It's also currently unclear exactly how good her AoE is. It's definitely not on the level of characters like Neuvillette, Mavrika, and Veressa, but it seems like it's possibly similar to someone like Raiden's normal attack AoE. I'm not expecting AoE to be particularly an issue for her, but in those rare scenarios of severe mobbing content, it could be a noticeable downside. Skirk also doesn't really have any front load damage, so keep that in mind as well. Aside from that, there's also the issue of her team restriction, but I don't think this is nearly as bad as it's been made out to be. There are plenty of options for Hydro and Cryo characters, and she's exceptionally strong as long as Escoffier is present. That even if Escoffier isn't around, she still looks pretty good even after taking the DPS loss into account. It's certainly annoying to have this first restriction limiting creativity freedom on her team building, but it's not the end of the world. Now, something that can be either good or bad, depending on how you view it, is it feels like Skirk already has her full premium team. I can't imagine a reality where Escoffier and Farina ever get replaced, and our best 4th slot options of Yelan, Shenna, and Lali, they all contribute a lot in their own right as well. It's very possible for someone like the Saritsa to release and be a big upgrade in that final slot, but I can't imagine it being a big upgrade over the current options. So on one hand, this is good because it means you don't need to sit around for months or even years feeling like you have an incomplete team, but on the other hand, it's bad because it means Skirk might gradually fall down in the meta as new strong DPS come out, and new supports might even elevate up some existing characters more. But Skirk's current power level is high enough to where I don't think that's really worth worrying about. One thing that's really disappointing though is the fact that she's even cryo to begin with. The animation of Skirk's attacks do not look cryo whatsoever. Her burst icon even has its own unique purple color. Everything about her screams that she should have had a new element. Even if Hoyo doesn't want to add new elements, they could have at least given Skirk an enhanced version of cryo. Say, just as a random example, her cryo could have been called something like Frost Moon. and it's treated the same as being cryo, except reactions it triggers or reactions triggered off of it have enhanced effects, such as maybe freeze involving it lowers enemies' defense. That's just a random example, but I think something simple like that would have been cool enough. The last thing I want to quickly address is the complaint I've seen about Skirk being barely stronger than Ayaka. I believe this misconception came from day one in Calcs that we're using a pure guess-say assumption for Skirk's combo, but it turns out her actual combo gets considerably more hits than what was being assumed. So if we look at the math, Skirk's team DPS is about 17% higher than Ayaka's. Ayaka's team does, however, have a lot of front load, which in practice could make up for that difference, but at the same time, Ayaka also has plenty of well-documented practical issues which Skirk does not have, so Skirk should overall be a good upgrade over Ayaka. Some players may have been expecting an even bigger upgrade since Ayaka has been out since 2.0, but we have to remember that Ayaka with Escoffier is legitimately a top-tier DPS right now, so being a good upgrade over her is pretty darn great. And that's all I've got to say. If you liked today's video, please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your thoughts below. Also, feel free to join my Discord where you can chat with me and my community directly. Thanks, and goodbye.